Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, in deck number 787, we're going to talk about Muxus, Goblin Grandee. Big old 6-mana Goblin Noble. 4/4. What does our 6-mana get us? When Muxus enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. Put all Goblin creature cards with mana value 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield, the rest on the bottom in a random order. So you're going to get some value there. The thing is, you got to chock it full of goblins. Whenever Muxus attacks, it gets +1 until end of turn for each other goblin you control. So we're building the goblin deck. It's been a while. Before we... we will... There's certain things here that help tremendously goblins. Before we get into the actual goblins, we have Goblin War Drums. Being able, they have to block it 2 for 1. Reduces the amount. Impact Trimmers. Of course, if we are going to be creating goblins left and right, which is what we're planning on doing, Impact Trimmers is a good, solid card. Cavalcade of Calamity. Now, power 1 or less attacks. Yes, we do have some, tribal pump-ups in here, but we're not always going to draw them. And the Cavalcade, that's a beating and a half, especially with a lot of little ones. We have Outnumber. Deals damage to target creature equal number of creatures you control, which is going to be a bunch. It's almost like Goblin War Strike. Brightstone Ritual is a pretty good ritual. Now, the thing about the Brightstone Ritual here is that it looks like you don't get the mana till you don't need it. You already have a bunch of goblins in play, so why do you need it? Well, our commander... because I'm assuming it's going to die several times, and we're going to need to recast Muxus. By the way, thank you very much, Mr. Danny, for donating the Muxus. I forgot to say it on the title screen. Goblin Oriflamme. This is a hilarious card. Way back, the alpha version of Orcish Oriflamme had the wrong converted mana cost on it. It was supposed to be 3 in a red, and it was printed at 1 in a red, and it was a big thing. They were like, no, that's too powerful. And then, for the next 30 years, nobody ever played with Orcish Oriflamme, and they printed this one, and it still doesn't see a whole lot of play, but it does work here. Claws of Allocate, because we were playing mono red, and I had to use this specific coat of arms, because... there's goblins carrying it. So, now, let's get into our goblins. First, we're going to do the, here. Our mana ramp, per se, is Skirk Prospector. I try to use goblins in as many forms as I could here. Card draw, quote-unquote. The Conspicuous Snoop. Allowing you to just... play goblin spells from the top of your library is tantamount to drawing extra cards. You have access to more. And then Goblin Ringleader, of course, just puts the goblins in your hand that it reveals. So let's look at our goblin tribal helper things. You know what I'm talking about. Goblin King. Giving them all +1 in Mountain Walk. The Land Walk abilities, you just don't see that much anymore. They don't print a whole lot of them, and... granted it is Mountain Walk, but still. We have the Goblin War Chief, making them all cheaper and giving them haste. Thank you, D&D. We got the Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. It's an anthem, and to any target. This is useful for getting around those propagandas and ghostly prisons and things like that we really can't do anything about. The Trashmaster. Here again, an anthem and some removal to pop some artifacts, so that's kind of neat. Goblin Chieftain. Haste and an anthem. The Goblin Lookout. Sack a goblin. So all goblins get +2? Okay. The Goblin Recruiter. And the Goblin Matron. Now, before... I have the goblins in different categories here, alright? Before we get into the next goblin category, let's do goblin adjacent things. Like the Mog Catcher. Just search, go get a goblin. Putting into play. That's beautiful. Now, the Goblin Wizard from the Dark, I had 3 or 4 copies of those. I used those in past, but that thing has gotten ridiculous. So let's look at things that eat goblins. The Click Slither. This is almost a fireball. I mean, it really is. If you've got a bunch of goblins out here, again, under the propaganda scenario or the only one creature can attack scenario, you can, just play it, sack your goblins, and go with this one creature. Then we have Voracious Dragon. Deals damage to target creature or player equal to twice the number of goblins it devoured. So, with that, let's make some goblins. We have things that make goblins. Mostly spells, Dragon Fodder, Krinko's Command, Goblin Rally, War Party, Goblin Wizardry, Hordling Outburst. Then we've got the creatures, the Mog War Marshal brings a buddy, the Goblin Instigator brings a buddy, Beetleback brings 2 buddies. I should have a Siege Gang Commander in here. Yes, I should, but I do not. I couldn't find one. So we do have Krinko, 10 Street Kingpin. It attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it, then create a number of goblins equal to his power. That could be really big, especially if we get the Claws Valakut on this thing. But then, the other Krinko, I'm telling you, tap to make goblins is pretty good. So let's look at our just other goblins, because we need bodies, right? We need Reckless 1, number of goblins in play. Horde of Boggers, number of red permanents in play. Brash Taunter's a goblin. What up? That's right. It'd be great for that Mog Catcher, wouldn't it? Just fish it out of the deck for 3 mana. Skirk Fire Marshal don't care that he's going to kill all his own goblins. Sometimes that's what it needs to happen. The Outrage Shaman. Deals damage to target creature equal to the number of red mana symbols in the mana cost of permanents you control. That was the forebearer to Devotion, Chroma. Goblin Surgeon. Now this one is it's really sneakily good. Sack a goblin to regenerate a creature. So I mean that's really good because our goblins are goblin tokens. Very disposable. Perhaps goblins are good for something after all. Goblin Havlaneer, Frenzied Goblin, Goblins of the Flarg, Goblin Champion, Exalted, Mog Sentry. A lot of these are just, we need goblin bodies. 10 Street Dodger, Raging Goblin, Goblin Digging Team. This is for my good friend Jimmy. He runs a lot of walls. Goblin Motivator. Rust Razor Butcher. That's got Wither. Permanent damage. Squee! Gotta have Squee. Goblin Flotilla. Now, here again, Island Walk. Yeah, you gotta pay a red when it attacks, but if they have islands, you don't, because, throw your goblins in a boat and send them across there. Goat Napper. I have respect for the goat napping type abilities. My Amiiboy Changeling got goat nap the other day. Goblin Chain Whirler. If they're running some kind of small creature deck, Boggart Arsonist. Sack it to destroy target scarecrow or planes. I don't know if that's going to come up that much, but this thing has Planeswalk. So right now we're representing Mountain Walk, Island Walk, and Planeswalk. Right? Goblin Chariot with haste. And then our 2 flyers, Goblin Glider, and then our big old flyer, the Battle Squadron. Number of creatures you control. So let's look at some removal. Volley Veteran I have in the removal spot. Deals damage target creature and opponent controls. So, do have Tarfire. See, I don't understand why they're not doing tribal cards anymore. They may reprint one of the existing ones every so often, but they're not making new ones. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing that has come and gone. Or, I don't know. I liked it. But that's why Muxus says Goblin Creature cards. A Goblin Grenade, it had to be in there, right? And then because, if you'll notice, there's no artifacts in this entire deck. Probably should be, but I don't think Goblins would use them that well. I think they would just bust them up, Granulate. Destroy all little artifacts. And then Shatterstorm. Destroy them all. Get them gone. Because that's what goblins do. I mean, they're not going to have a soul ring or we have the coat of arms. My bad. But I don't think they're above blowing up their own coat. So, we do have that Sweet Rogue's Passage. I know it's been a while. Because Muxus gets so large the more goblins that we have. So, Goblin Burrows. Forgotten Cave, cycle a little bit, and then our last card is Den of the Bugbear, turning into a bigger goblin, and then making other goblins. So, yeah, I had a ton of fun building this one. The really made, even though it's not a Forgotten Realms D&D commander, it was really, really made possible by the D&D set and by Mr. Danny. So, thank you all very much. So we're going to go put Muxus up here on the wall. 787. Get over there. Oh, goblins. It's been a while. But I don't think there's any goblins, legendary goblins left that I haven't done so far. So anyway, that's it for today. We're running kind of long, so we're going to go ahead and shuffle and cut.